In 2019, Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite and Unreal Engine, wrote a check for $1.2 million to a competitor. They didn't buy equity. They didn't ask for a seat on the board. They just handed over the cash and said, "Keep building." Then, NVIDIA and AMD joined in. They each pledged over 120,000 euros a year. Then Unity, Epic's fiercest rival in the game engine wars, started contributing. Then, Apple, the most closed ecosystem on Earth, didn't just write a check. They deployed their own engineering team to rewrite Blender's Cycles rendering engine to run natively on their Metal API. In a normal market, big fish eat little fish. But here, the whales are aggressively feeding the plankton. Why? Why are the most ruthless capitalists in Silicon Valley pouring millions into a free open-source tool that makes zero profit? They aren't doing it out of charity. They are doing it because Blender is the most dangerous weapon they have. To understand this, you have to understand a strategy called commoditizing the complement. It is a rule as old as economics. If you sell gas, you want cars to be cheap. If cars are expensive, fewer people drive, and you sell less gas. So you love it when Ford or Toyota lowers their prices. If you sell printers, you want paper to be practically free. The cheaper the complement, the more valuable your product becomes. Now, look at the 3D industry. Epic Games sells the destination, the engine. NVIDIA sells the horsepower, the GPU. But what is the fuel? The fuel is 3D assets, models, rigs, animations. Without 3D assets, an RTX 4090 is just a heater. Without 3D assets, Unreal Engine is just an empty box. For 20 years, the fuel was artificially expensive. To understand why this weapon exists, you have to go back to the moment it almost died. In 2002, Blender wasn't free. It was a failed startup called Not a Number. It bankrupted. The investors seized the code. It was locked in a safe, effectively dead. Ton Roosendahl, the creator, pulled a maneuver that saved it forever. He ransomed the code back from the investors for 100,000 euros, and he released it under the GPL license. This is the critical detail. The GPL license is a poison pill for acquisition. It means no one can ever buy Blender again. No one can close it. No one can turn it into a subscription. It became an unkillable zombie. And that is exactly what Epic and NVIDIA needed. The market was controlled by the gatekeepers: Autodesk Maya, Cinema 4D, 3ds Max. These tools are incredible, but they are also expensive. They created a barrier to entry. If a kid in a basement wanted to learn 3D, they had to pay a seat tax of thousands of dollars. This limited the supply of artists, and limited supply means fuel is scarce. For Epic and NVIDIA, this is a disaster. Every dollar a studio spends on a Maya license is a dollar they can't spend on more GPUs or better servers. The high cost of creation was choking the growth of the real-time revolution. So they made a calculation. It is cheaper to fund a revolution than to fight a monopoly. For years, Blender was the underdog. It was free, but it was weird. It was ignored by the industry. When Blender 2.8 fixed the interface, it became viable. And that is when the giant struck. By funding Blender, Epic and NVIDIA are driving the cost of 3D creation to zero. They are flooding the market with free professional-grade tools. This destroys the pricing power of the gatekeepers. How does Autodesk charge $2,000 a year when the industry standard alternative is free? They can't. Or at least, they can't raise prices easily. This is not a donation. It is a strategic airstrike on the profit margins of their competitors. So when you see Apple contributing code to Blender or Epic throwing a mega grant, do not mistake it for kindness. They are building a world where the creation layer is a commodity. They want you to make things for free, so you can play them in their engines, on their hardware, in their walled gardens. Blender thinks it is the hero of this story, and for the users, it is. But in the boardroom, Blender is something else. It is the bait, and the trap is working perfectly.